Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello, everybody. How is it going today? I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. My day has been so good. I am so busy right now. I got so much going on. I'm almost done school. Woohoo! The end is in sight. I got 2 weeks left and then I am done. And I'm just so excited. I'm just so excited. And you guys already know how much I enjoy doing these episodes, so it just puts me even in a better mood. So I've been crazy busy. I've been working my butt off, getting things done because the end is in sight. But doing this podcast is just such a nice break from studying and getting that kind of work done. I love coming on here and talking to you and just finding these feel-good, positive stories. It just brightens up my day, and then I get to talk and share them with you guys, and just makes me feel so good. So I hope it makes you guys feel good just like it does me. I have lots of good ones today. I feel like I say that every single episode, but I do. How can you not have good stories when they're all positive and feel-good stories, right? But I do have lots of pretty fun ones today. Hang around to the end of the episode because I have a really cool story about a scientist's dream who wanted to make it to space. And that dream didn't come true until after he passed away. Sounds a little weird, right? Well, stick around to the end so you can find out exactly how that happens. I also have a really cool story about some glasses, and guess who owned these glasses? Gandhi. Okay? Gandhi owned these glasses. It's also a really unique kind of cool story, so stick around for those. But right now, I thought I would start today's episode off with a little bit of a survey that I found about happiness, because it's all about happiness and feel-good stories on this podcast, so thought this would be perfect. So they're saying that 89% of people think happiness can be controlled, and they are much happier for it. So how far can the self-belief that you make your own happiness really truly carry you? You know, how can creating those conditions for self-fulfilling prophecy really work? But now there's this new study that shows there is a happy correlation. Pretty interesting, right? Okay, so this survey, they surveyed over 1,000 people, and the respondents found that 89% of people think that their happiness can be controlled, and these people are 32% happier than those who don't think that happiness can be controlled. Interesting, right? So the average happiness rating given by the participants who think happiness is controllable is 7.39. So that's in contrast to the average happiness rating of people who think happiness is out of their control. So that's 5.61. So 7.39 compared to 5.61. Do you think happiness can be controlled? Where do you lie in that? So they're saying even taking into account that the so-called self-serving bias, which is the common habit of a person taking credit for positive events or outcomes, but blaming outside factors for negative events. And the author believes that the research is very noteworthy. He says, I didn't expect such a big difference in happiness ratings between the people who think happiness can be controlled and those who don't. He says, in a social science, a lot of correlations are far less clear, as results are often influenced by factors that cannot be excluded in a study. However, the study is consistent with others in the field and hints at the fact that the happiest people have learned that some aspects of life are within our control. By focusing on those areas, you are more inclined to feel happy. Makes sense, right? So that was Hugo Hare, the study's author. Pretty interesting. I'm going to have to agree, because if you do focus on the things that you can control and you make the most out of those things and you try hard to find that happiness out of the things you do control, the things you can't control are a lot more bearable and a lot easier to handle most of the time, right? So if you can focus on what you can control, you are going to be happier. So the respondents were asked, is happiness something that you can control? And if you look back at the last year of your life, how would you rate your happiness on a scale from 1 to 10? And then they were grouped into 3 categories based on how high they rated their happiness. And people with low happiness ratings, so about 6 or lower, are 5 times more likely to feel like happiness is out of their control compared to the people with a high 9 or 10 happiness ratings. So that's 20.33% versus 4.29%. Quite a difference. And so digging into the demographic, the study examined ranging from gender to employment status as well. So there's lots that went into it. And there was no difference between genders, which is pretty cool. Both male and female respondents showed the same results, and 89% of people think that happiness is controllable. And a self-described data junkie and a happiness tracker for over 6 years, the author of this, him and his researcher team in Netherlands said that their studies showed that people with a higher educational background are more likely to feel like happiness can be controlled. Interestingly enough, though, it's the students that are least likely to feel like happiness can be controlled when compared to other employment statuses of our respondents. So the study shows that part-time and full-time employees are most likely to feel like happiness can be controlled. So based on all of this, when transitioning from being a college student to being employed, you can expect to feel more in control of your happiness. So on average, from 75 to 90% in control of your happiness. Now, I think this lies because when you're still in school or when you're still in college and you're still kind of figuring things out. So maybe you don't know exactly where your happiness lies. And I find too, when you're in school, a lot of the time you're still getting to know yourself, still figuring out exactly what does make you happy. So maybe that kind of plays a factor into it. But they also say that age seems to have a significant influence on the average respondent as well. So the amount of control we have over our happiness decreases in our midlife and increases as we grow older again. And one interesting finding is that the age plays a quite significant role, and it says that happiness versus age. So researchers have found a U-curve in our happiness, showing that happiness decreases from the age 18 and reaches peak unhappiness at approximately age 47. So then from there, the happiness levels gradually increase again, and this has been confirmed all around the world. So there you have it. So then similar to the U-curve in happiness, our feelings of control over happiness tend to reach a negative peak during our midlife. That's according to this study. And actual happiness and control over happiness is correlated, and it is logical that our midlives align with a feeling of lower control over happiness. There you go. So I guess the good news is that the feelings of control over happiness increase as we get older again. So midlife, we can expect to trend towards happiness in the future, I guess. So where are you on the happiness spectrum? Do you think that happiness can be controlled, or is it not controllable? Shoot me a message on social media. I would love to know your opinion on that study because I found it really interesting. Now, I can't do an episode without saying something positive about the pandemic. Well, there has been something positive. There has been a groundbreaking rapid coronavirus test that have been rolled out or going to be rolled out to hospitals and care homes and labs across the UK to increase testing capacity ahead of winter. The test will enable the doctors and the NHS to quickly test and trace to stop any future spread of the virus. So as a recent study suggests, measures already taken to limit transmission in care homes and hospitals have been working effectively through early July, and they continued reduction of the virus, even while some restrictions were eased in May and June. So the 2 new tests, both able to detect the virus in just 90 minutes, crazy, will be available to NHS hospitals, care homes, and labs. And the 2 tests will be able to detect both COVID-19 and other winter viruses such as the flu or a respiratory syncytial virus, so RSV. And they don't require a trained health professional to operate. So meaning that they can be rolled out in more non-clinical settings. Pretty good news, right? So almost 500,000 swab tests will be available across adult care settings and laboratories starting just next week. These are all supplied by Oxford Nanopore, and the new test will be able to process swab and saliva samples to detect the presence of COVID-19 in 60 to 90 minutes. That is quick. And the second test uses DNA to detect the virus with 5,000 DNA machines supplied by the maker, DNA Nudge, and they're being rolled out next month to NHS hospitals, allowing 5.8 million tests in the coming months. So the machines will analyze DNA from the nose swabs, providing a positive negative result for COVID-19 in 90 minutes at the point of their care. And the machines will process up to 15 tests on the spot each day without the need for a laboratory. There you go. Positive pandemic news. You can always count on me to bring you some positive pandemic news. I try every single episode to bring something uplifting about COVID-19, about the pandemic, about the craziness that we're living in right now. So there you have it. That's my little positivity about COVID-19 in today's episode. It is time for a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere. Like I mentioned, I have a really cool story about Gandhi's glasses, as well as how a scientist reached his dream after he passed away. It's an interesting one. You don't want to miss it. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello. We are back, and I got more feel-good, positive stories for you. You already know that. This next one is about a pretty amazing 17-year-old girl who did something amazing. Amazing. How many times am I going to say that? So this girl, she won $250,000 in the top prize in a teen science fair, and she invented a tool that could prevent starvation in Africa. Yes, you heard that correctly. 17-year-old girl invented a tool that could prevent starvation in Africa. I had to repeat it. So this is the nation's oldest and most prestigious STEM competition for high school seniors, and they just awarded more than $1.8 million to 10 finalists who exhibited exceptional problem-solving abilities and scientific leadership. $1.8 million. How crazy is that? So this is the first time in its 78-year history that the Reunion Science Talent Search competition, it was formerly known as the Westinghouse Science Talent Search. It took place virtually this year because COVID-19, of course, but that did not ruin the excitement as the top winners were announced. And the one girl I'm talking about, her name is Lillian K. Peterson, and she is from New Mexico. And she won $250,000, $250,000 for what she did. She's only 17 years old, and she invented a very simple tool, well, they say it's a simple tool, I guess, for predicting harvest early in the growing season, which helps to improve food distribution planning and offers a promising resource to aid groups working on global food insecurity. Crazy. So her name's Lillian, and she first validated her tool, which analyzes daily satellite imagery using accepted measures of vegetation health on known domestic crop data. Then she tested it for countries in Africa and successfully predicted harvest with terrific accuracy when compared with reported yields. How crazy is that? She was motivated to do research in this field after her parents adopted children who faced food insecurity. And later she read about Ethiopia, where a famine had affected millions of people, leading to developmental learning problems in the children. How incredible is that, right? She did, to make a tool that does that at 17 years old, just crazy. Now, second place won $175,000, and they developed 2 fast and simple machine learning algorithms for computer programs that are attempting to learn new concepts under the tutelage of an instructor, so either a computer or a human. And the algorithms do not only ask random questions, kind of like a savvy detective, but they ask the right questions. And the AI algorithms could help train robots and other automated devices faster and easier. Crazy. Now, third place won $150,000. And for his project, his name is Brendan Crotty. His project, he was designed and built an efficient hybrid gas burner that could help reduce the ecological impact of industries like power generation and materials manufacturing. And his specialized burner system operates at higher temperatures than current industrial burners, yet emits 19% less polluting nitrogen dioxide gas. To build his model, he had to become proficient in computer design software, metal casting, and machining. How crazy is that? So they're saying congratulations to the Science Talent Search 2020 winners. Just an incredible job. If you want to learn more about what these 3 finalists did, there is a YouTube video. There's lots of information on the internet. You already know how to find it. I'm sure you do. So go check that out if you want to hear more. But these winners, they're 17, 18, and 18 years old. How crazy is that? All right, so I did promise a story about Gandhi's glasses, and I'm going to share that with you now because I think you deserve it. You've waited this long. So these glasses that were belonging to Gandhi, they were mailed to an auction house, and the owner had no idea of their value. So a pair of these spectacles belonging to Gandhi, they are expected to fetch thousands at auction after this owner mailed them in an envelope to the auctioneers, hoping just to get a few bucks. So the gold-colored glasses, they were gifted to the current owner's uncle by the famous leader during a trip to South Africa in the 1920s. And this very rare item was then passed down through generations before ending up in the mailbox of an auction house in Bristol, England. And the sale price has now been set to 10,000 euros and 15 euros for the spectacles, although it is thought that they could eventually go for more. So Gandhi, as we know, he was named Man of the Year by Time magazine in 1930. He was a lawyer and an activist whose non-violent campaign successfully freed India from British rule, if you don't know anything about Gandhi. But much like John Lennon, they say, he developed a distinctive look later on in life, which also included these iconic glasses. So if you've seen a picture of Gandhi, you've probably seen him wearing these glasses. And yeah, this person literally just mailed these off to the auction, just wanting a few bucks, not even really realizing the value of these glasses. So Andrew Stowe, he's from the Bristol auctions. He said, "We came in one morning and there, poking rather precisely out of a letter box, was a small envelope. And in the envelope was a pair of spectacles along with a note that read, 'These were Gandhi's glasses,' and a phone number for the owner." Apparently he just did not think of the actual degree of value of these. He says, "It was the most bizarre 5 minutes of my career. A telephone call later and we learned the full story and set about our research. So once we dug a little deeper, we realized these glasses were find of a huge historical importance. Gandhi is an iconic figure in world history, and when one thinks of him, you conjure up the image of his shawl, his sandals, and his glasses." Like I said, if you've seen a picture of Gandhi, you've seen him wearing these glasses, I swear. So he did add that Gandhi was known to give away his personal possessions to those who helped him. He says the uncle in question worked for British Petroleum at the time, and the family legend was that he helped Gandhi in some way during his visit, and in return for the favor, he was gifted these glasses. And it's just the most incredible story, he says, because the owner literally had no idea of their value, and would have been quite happy to receive £50 for them, I'm sure. He says, "When I told him of the valuation, the line went quiet for a moment. He was rather surprised." He says, it's one of those moments we all dream of. Discovering something we've owned for years is worth thousands of pounds. So it's always a complete joy to make these discoveries. He says lots relating to Gandhi have fetched out a lot of money at the auction before, with a small shawl that was worn by him that sold in 2013 for 40,000 pounds. A pair of well-worn sandals sold in the same year for 13,000 pounds. And the glasses are due to go under the hammer during the East Bristol Auction Specialist in the Military and History Auction. And that takes place online at 10 a.m. on August 21st. If you want Gandhi's glasses and you want to go check out this auction, go online. The East Bristol's auctions, the Military and History Auction, 10 a.m. August 21st. Go take Gandhi's glasses. How cool is that? I thought that was a pretty unique story. He had no idea the value of these glasses. Now, I want to share a story about how there has now been free internet coming for 35,000 low-income Philly families in the public-private partnership because classrooms stay closed. So Philadelphia wants to ensure that all of the K-12 students have internet access, so they have what they need while learning remotely during this pandemic, especially at the city schools. They're going to remain closed in-person classes this fall. So since COVID, of course, forced the school closures, the city has been working with foundations and partners to mobilize funding that will provide broadband internet access for 35,000 kids. And this week, they just unveiled a program that will all make it happen. It's called PHL Connect ED, and it'll connect eligible student households with 2 years of high-speed internet without any out-of-pocket expenses or installation fees. How awesome is that? So the Philadelphia School District recently distributed over 120,000 devices to students who lack them at home. And the school district and charter schools will continue to work with schools and families to make sure they have the resources that they need. And PHL Connect ED is the first stage of the city's larger digital equity initiative to support digital literacy and access for all Philadelphia residents. How cool is that? There, I just fit in another positive story about the pandemic. That's 2 of them. You're welcome. All right, it is time for another break, but you better not go anywhere because I still haven't shared the story about the scientist who lived his dream after he passed away. Do you have any guesses how it could have happened? Any guesses at all? Well, you're going to find out after the break because I'll be right back, so don't go anywhere.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast. My name is Alyssa Jo. I am your host. Hello. We are back. We're on the last stretch of today's episode. You're waiting for that cool story that I have to share with you, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer because I have other cool stories to share with you first. You probably hate me a little bit right now. So I want to share another story about an incredible teen again. What is with all these young geniuses coming out and making a difference in our world? It is so cool. So the FDA has approved a low-cost ventilator that was designed by a team of volunteers and including the Jeopardy Teen Champion. If you don't know what Jeopardy is, that TV show, he is the Jeopardy teen champion. His name is Avi Gubata. I'm not saying that right probably, but his name is Avi Gubata. He's the youngest member of the team, and he's also the reigning Jeopardy teen tournament champion. And he was one of the volunteers who helped design this ventilator's use interface, I guess. So since March, there has been more than 180 volunteer doctors, engineers that have been working together in their spare time to try to design a cheaper ventilator that can save lives while still costing much less. Last week, their device received emergency approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, for use on patients. They say that the original prototype, which was fully functional, was made in our garages, so it's truly something that can be deployed worldwide. The developer said that the LifeMech Adapted Ventilator System, the AVS, will cost around $400 to manufacture, and the plans are open source, so anyone who has the need and ability to make one can see the plans. Pretty cool. Now, the nonprofit, which was filed with the IRS to be recognized as 501c3 tax-deductible entity, has already raised $25,000 to cover costs of parts and testing, but needs more money to move into manufacturing. So their goal is to get the ventilators into the hands of doctors who need them in developing countries like Zambia, Nigeria. So their goal is to get the ventilators into the hands of doctors who need them in developing countries. So there is a GoFundMe page if you want to go check that out. There is a GoFundMe page, of course. Search up the FDA, low-cost ventilator. You'll see all this information that comes up, and you can go donate if you want to be a part of that. It's LifeMech Machines Saving Lives. And yeah, it's about $25,000 right now, but they are looking for money. So go help out if you feel so inclined to. I always highly encourage to do that. Now, not quite at the story that you're waiting for yet, but I do want to share this new transparent spray-on coating for windows that can block heat and conduct electricity for cheap, smart solution. Cool, right? Why is there so many cool scientific discoveries or new inventions in this episode? I feel like that's all I'm talking about today, but I love it. I find it so interesting. So they're saying that after the Empire State Building in New York reported installing smart glass windows, they cut energy usage by $2.4 million and their carbon emissions by 4,000 metric tons. But smart windows are quite costly. So that's why there is this new transparent spray-on coating that is much more cost-effective while providing similar performance. And it's worth shouting, I guess, from the tops of skyscrapers. So it's a simple method for adding a clear coating to existing windows to block heat and also conduct electricity could radically cut the cost of energy-saving smart windows and heat-repelling glass. So the spray-on coatings developed by researchers at MRIT University in Melbourne, Australia. It's ultra-thin and they rival the performance of current industry standards for transparent electrodes. And the transparent electrodes combine the best properties of glass and metals in a single component, which is a highly conductive clear coating that allows visible light through. And those coatings, the key components of smart windows, touchscreen displays, LED lighting, and solar panels, are currently made through time-consuming processes that rely on expensive raw materials. The new spray-on method is fast, scalable, and based on cheaper materials that are readily available. So the method could simplify the fabrication of smart windows, which can be both energy-saving and dimmable, as well as low emissivity glass, where a conventional glass panel is coated with a special layer to minimize ultraviolet and infrared light. Pretty interesting, right? So he says smart windows and low E glass can help regulate temperatures inside a building, delivering major environmental benefits and financial savings, but they remain expensive and challenging to the manufacturer. So the ultimate aim is to make smart windows much more widely acceptable, cutting energy costs and reducing the carbon footprint of new retrofitted buildings. So the new method can also be precisely optimized to produce coatings tailored to the transparency and conductivity requirements of the many different applications of transparent electrodes. So how does it work? Well, the standard approach for manufacturing transparent electrodes is based on indium, a rare and expensive element, and vacuum deposition methods, which are bulky, slow, and costly. So this makes transparent electrodes a major cost in the production of any of these devices. So in this new study, The researchers at the School of Science made transparent electrodes using the far cheaper material tin oxide and spiked with a special combination of chemicals to enhance conductivity and transparency. So it says the ultra-thin transparent coatings, which are over 100 times thinner than a human hair, crazy, they only allow visible light through while blocking both harmful UV light and heat in the form of infrared radiation. So the scientists used a process called ultrasonic spray pyrolysis to fabricate smooth, uniform coatings of high optical and electrical quality. There you have it. Another really cool invention that's going to be saving a lot of money and also saving our planet. The global market size for smart glass and smart windows is expected to reach $6.9 billion by 2022, while the global low E glass market is set to reach an estimated $39.4 billion by 2024. There you have it. Just some numbers to put it in perspective for you. Okay, now we've made it. I'm going to share this pretty cool story about this scientist's dream who wanted to visit the moon, wanted to go to space, wanted to go to moon, and after his death, he finally made it to the moon. Okay, pretty cool. So let me give you the background story of this whole thing. Once upon a time, Eugene and Caroline Shoemaker, they met at a wedding in 1950, and they shared a passion for space, and they just fell in love. And after a year of sending each other long-distance love letters, they got married. They finally got married. It was just one of those love stories. Amazing, right? So a decade later, President John F. Kennedy announced that the nation would be sending a man to the moon. And Eugene was thrilled because he was a geologist who specialized in studying craters, and he had a promising chance of joining the NASA mission. So he's ecstatic, of course. Then after a series of medical tests to examine his fitness, they learned that he had Addison's disease. So there was no possibility of him reaching the moon now. So it was still Eugene's life was, it was full of big achievements, and he dedicated himself to training astronauts like Neil Armstrong, which is super cool, for their space expeditions, and he combined the study of geology and astronomy, helping create the field of planetary science. He co-discovered a comet, Shoemaker-Levy 9, alongside with his scientist wife and astronomer David Levy as well, and unfortunately, his life came to a sudden end in a car crash in 1997. He was in Australia exploring a meteor crash site with his wife, and exploring craters like this one had always been a favorite passion for him. So while she recovered in the hospital, she received a very unexpected call from NASA and basically just asked if she would be interested in having some of Eugene's ashes join the Lunar Prospector mission to the moon. She thought that would be absolutely wonderful. I just got goosebumps. I hope you did too. So the Prospector headed for the moon the following year, and the most amazing thing happened. So when the mission was finished, the unmanned vehicle ran out of fuel and crashed into the moon's south pole, creating a crater where Shoemaker's ashes remain today. Ooh, I got goosebumps. I hope you did too. I thought that was such a cool story. They say you could say it was an accident made in heaven. How cool is that? He made it to the moon, and even an accident like that, it's just, it all comes full circle. I had to share it. I thought it was unique. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope it was worth waiting to the end. All right, well, that is all that I have to share with you today. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. You already know how much I love being here, so thank you so much for being here. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button. I got new episodes out every single Monday and Thursday, so be reminded of those. Head on over to our social media pages. I update those regularly. We got Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And like I mentioned at the beginning of today's episode, what is your opinion? Can happiness be controlled? Shoot me a message on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. I promise I'll respond to you. We can chat about happiness. I would love to. And as always, please do not forget to leave a 5-star review. I love reading the reviews, and it helps out a ton. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to share more positive feel-good stories with you next time. Stay safe, stay positive, spread kindness every single chance you get. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.